Excited to do this live stream. Joe should be in shortly, in just a second. We're going to get confirmation, and we're going to take a look at the iPhone 3. Just wanted to get the live stream started, and make sure that everything is going well, that my audio is good, my camera is good. Yeah, we're looking forward to some of the stuff that's going to happen today on the stream. One thing that I wanted to let you know is that the process of today's stream is going to be, we're going to get started with some demo. So we're going to do the demo first. We're going to go over different things. If there are questions that are pertinent to the demo, I will ask them. But most likely, we're going to just go into the Q&A section later. But we want to see how the phone works, what are some of the extra improvements and updates that it has had. So I'm really, really excited about, just getting started, getting everything going. I'm going to start documenting the timestamps so that you can also keep a tab on that, if you want to come back. So if you want to come back to the video and take a look into it, how it works. We're going to have that ability yet. So in just like a minute, we're going to start with the live stream with the demo, and then we're going to move forwards to that. If you can hear me well, and it sounds good, and I look also kind of like 1080p, I guess, that's what I'm trying to send. Please let me know, because last time I think I had some settings messed up and my audio was not working and my video also wasn't working. But Joe is here. We're going to bring him in, and I'm really, really happy to get you this first look at the iPhone 3. It's about a month when it comes to the release. Is about a month or so, and we're really excited, or a month and a little bit. So we'll get to talk to Joe and get with the demo. So what's up, Joe? How's it going? It's good to see you.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you. Really excited to have you here. We're going to start with a demo, so I think that's the best.
I apologize for this truck that's been honking
Gotcha.
outside my building for the last 10 minutes. I think it will pass soon, but someone's probably blocking the street, unfortunately.
That happens. That happens for sure. But let's start with a demo, Joe, of the device. Let's take a look into it. Show us the progress, and what does the iPhone 3 look like today?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't intending any full demo of sorts, but happy to show things off. I feel like maybe it might be easier to even just sort of like back and forth as people have questions. I can pull up different things and whatnot, but we've been living with the iPhone 3 for quite some time now. It's getting more refined week by week. Sorry, this mirroring thing is always going to be tricky. We have an awesome sort of brightness wheel. I'll keep it down so that the screen doesn't blow it up. But as you're sort of used to, is it mirrored, or can you see it properly?
It's mirrored. It's like, can you mirror back? Or
see if the video allows me to do that.
It should
mirror my video. Okay, how's that work?
So that's good.
Hey, look, there you are at the top. So, sort of exactly as everything you'd expect. iPhone 3 wise, I'm not sure if there's specific questions. Basically, the state of everything is that we have more or less every tool functioning, but we're still kind of going through passes to update all the designs. So, something like the calendar, it's working wonderfully, but this is going to be a pretty awkward one. But the actual calendar itself, we haven't compressed the design and fixed the type to actually fit on the screen, but we've been making sure that alarms are working as expected, syncing calendars. I can add to my calendar and all of this. Other tools are much more fleshed out. The alarm is basically good to go, as one would expect. We've been working a lot on all things camera. So we have the album tool where you can see all of your photos. mine ends up being a lot of photos of myself because I hand someone the phone and they want to play with it. And so they've been taking photos or whatnot, but it's kind of great. I wake up with selfies of all my friends on my phone from playing with it. Texting is, basically done. We're going to do a couple more optimizations around things like hit slop, particularly around the space bar, just to make it a little bit easier. But shoot, it's so hard to do this. In terms of speed, I mean, it's sort of what you'd expect in terms of screen rendering and pace. We did some experimenting with optimizing that. It was pretty marginal improvements, but I think it's just about as fast and speedy as one could ever expect from a phone. So I think for us, the biggest ones now have just been really tweaking what they call the hit slop. So sort of space around the phone, the camera interface is going to probably be awkward in my face. Is working pretty wonderfully. You have this half focus. Oops, sorry. It's really hard to do mirrored.
That's
Take
really
the
good.
photo.
Looks really good.
And so that little processing, that's something we kind of added in our dev process, but I found actually to be really useful. So we might keep it. So we're kind of just still nitpicking how that exact experience of like you took a photo, that kind of feedback, and the processing for a second to let you know that it's sort of happening behind the hood. But that's working really well. I wonder if there's more specific questions than having me sort of just ramble through tools aimlessly.
No, for sure. We have a lot of questions from the Reddit.
Cool.
So if you want to jump and then we can kind of go back and forth between. I just wanted for people to see like the phone is working now. It has, more of the kind
this
of
mirror is really tripping me out. I'm not gonna lie, but
oh, there it is. Okay, so that's the hardware of the device. Like you get to see it all. You can mirror it back if you want, and then whenever we go back to kind of like something specific that needs text, I guess that's the only thing that really needs to be mirrored well. So yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's go over the first question that people asked in the live stream in the Reddit post was, now that we're closer to launch, do you have any better estimates about battery life for the phone? So, what is it looking like for standby versus active use?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at a high level, we haven't done a battery optimization pass. So there's hopefully still some room for improvement. I imagine because we're reusing a lot of the Light OS where we've done a lot of improvements for the Light Phone 2 already, that there's not going to be huge gains from where it currently is. But, probably towards the end of February, as we get close to launch, we have a couple of tickets out for these kind of optimizations just to make sure that nothing's unnecessarily draining battery. Estimates, I'm sort of still wondering the best way to kind of give a generic battery life estimate, just because of all the factors of, what someone considers normal use, and obviously different quality of carrier signal strength and whatnot. But I've been pleasantly surprised with the battery life on strictly standby, listening for a cell, call and text, and minimal calls and text. I've gotten over 48 hours of battery life, both in New York City and testing at my family farm in Louisiana a little bit. So two sort of different regions. And that's been really great. I'd say, day to day, I'm definitely getting through a full day with a charge. If I leave my house with 65% in the morning, I'm not actually that scared that, oh, shoot, it might die. So this has been really great, where the Light Phone 2, leaving with 60%, I might be a little bit more hesitant in that regard. As one would expect, directions tool or hotspotting, those things do, have a stronger impact. But I feel fairly confident that, quote unquote, normal use of the Light OS will definitely get through one full day with the charge without, needing to charge it again. If you plan on hotspotting for 2 hours, that might start to impact that, or longer directions. But it's not like, the directions, you're just watching the battery percentage drain. It's still been pretty reasonably good, I'd say.
That's good to hear. So essentially what I hear you say is that it's going to be somewhere around 48 hours, so 2 days of battery life. And if depending on your usage, of course, you can drain it faster, or you can make it last maybe a little bit longer. So a 2 to 3 day battery life. And for, if I remember correctly,
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess 1 to 2 days, probably more conservatively what I would want
okay,
someone to feel
yeah,
comfortable.
unless it's like,
Assuming, I'm sure there's cases where the phone will last longer. If there's no SIM card, we've had phones last up to a week of just kind of normal standby, but that's not really accurate to how someone would ever use the phone.
yeah, 100%. So I mean, unless they're using it as a weekend
But I would
phone,
say,
right?
like it's probably a smart idea to assume you might be charging it at night each day, or once in the morning. I think that's a pretty safe way to ensure that you have good battery life. If say you spend the night at someone's house and you're coming home later and stuff, like, you probably will be fine in that second day. But depending how you use the phone, it may or may not reach something like that 48 hours. I was very minimally using the phone, and at that point didn't have all of the tools.
Okay, sounds good.
Filming video, that's pretty intensive on the battery as well. The constant processing of the camera and whatnot. But I tend to use the camera pretty snapshotty, like pull it out, turn on the camera, taking a photo, and then putting it away. I'm not just kind of leaving the camera tool open for 30 minutes at a time.
Okay. Well, it's good to know these estimates. We're going to move to a next question that was pretty high on the Reddit post. Gather a lot of votes, but also this one came up in the chat, and it's about tariffs, so pricing of the phone. So will the price of the phone be affected by the latest U.S. tariffs? Talk to us a little bit more about what you guys are doing for that.
Yeah. So the Light phone is not an exception to the tariff rule. We will, as Light Phone Inc., be complying with all said tariffs, but we do not plan on passing that along, especially to any outstanding pre-orders. If you pre-ordered the phone, we promised you a phone, and we will get you a phone with no additional fee required. What the tariffs have been doing is impacting some of our internal forecasting. Our manufacturing partners talked about potentially setting up a secondary line in another country to have that option. But now, there's sort of retaliatory things happening, and that may not be possible. So it's sort of more internal things that we're affecting. I think the final price of the phone, we've sort of speculated at $799, and we've been trying our best to land somewhere lower than $799, and this will unfortunately impact that. I do not think it will go over $799, but we're trying to get it as low as possible. In an ideal world, we'd love to keep the phone at $599, but that may or may not be possible beyond this pre-order. So I think it's obviously an impact for us, but it's something we've been sort of assuming would happen since November. So we've been planning for it, and I would say to any pre-orders, don't think you're going to get hit with some extra bill. It's tough for us in this very cash sensitive time of forecasting and placing large orders of supplies, but that's our problem and something we're working for.
Okay, thank you for that. It really adds support to, hey, this is the price you paid. So if you want to secure the best pricing, what I'm hearing from you is pre-ordering right now is the best pricing that you'll ever get, because with some of these changes in pricing, tariffs, taxes, whatever it is, the forecast that you wanted to keep it maybe even lower, or kind of like where it was, may not be possible. And if that's not possible, it's going to go up. So if you have been thinking about pre-ordering the Light Phone 3, I recommend that you take a look at the links, and there's a pin link, but there's also check out their website. I'm going to put one in there as well in the chat. We're going to go with
just like a second thing on that pre-ordering. Obviously, the cheapest price would be pre-ordering now, but also I'd say if timing is important, we do still plan to ship chronologically. So each week you wait, as more orders come, that just means it'll be slightly longer delivery timeline. I think we're still in the May estimate for current new pre-orders, but as we begin shipping and more pre-orders come, that might push to June and even July, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you for that. Next question on the Reddit live stream is pretty much interesting question, but also easy to a degree. It's like, what do you think are the 100% features that you'll see on day one on the Lightphone 3? And what are the maybe more certain features that will come a year after? I remember with the Lightphone 2, there was this, you knew phone alarm settings was going to come with the phone. And then you said within a year, we plan to try to release this. So what is the Lightphone 3 going to look like?
Yeah, I'd say, we've been tracking towards essentially making it have every single feature that the Lightphone 2 currently supports. We've been hesitant to overpromise anything really beyond that, with the exception of the camera and the album tool that I sort of briefly showcased, because those are obviously not a part of the Lightphone 2. Some other new features we plan to have for day one are the ability to preview and share images. So if I'm sent a text with, an MMS with an image, to be able to preview that on the Lightphone itself, as well as the ability to share photos that I've taken on the phone. So those are all sort of new features. We've revamped the directions tool that's sort of already working. So the directions tool will work from day one, and it has slightly improved in its design, and that's really just making it more focused around the map itself. So it's actually just a simplified tool, and then the map itself, which I can show off in a little bit, is pretty awesome. I think I'm really happy with this new kind of I forget the word they use for it, but kind of like bird's eye view, the way it follows you as you make a turn, sort of adjusts the camera angle so you can see ahead where the next turn is, and then it kind of zooms back into your location. So some of this dynamic stuff that here our navigation partner has added, since we've been able to incorporate that into this new map where that wouldn't really make sense on the previous e-ink screen. So that's another upgrade, but in terms of fingerprint ID and eSIM, it doesn't currently look like those will be supported on day one. But there is a chance that is true, and depending where you are in the queue, it very well may work by your day one. I just today don't want to overpromise that. Another thing I've sort of mentioned is that we do also plan to rework some of the music tool, because there's a much larger hard drive now. We'd love to start adding things to support sorting by album and artist at least, and maybe eventually custom playlist and things of the sorts. And that, as of today, may not make day one, but that's on our short list again, like eSIM fingerprint, to get as soon as possible, if not for March.
So that's for day one. And now for year one, do you expect, here is where you can kind of tell us like RCS, wallet, all of the features that people are like, beeper. I know that you guys have mentioned trying to do that. Do you think year one after release, would that be happening, or where is that looking?
I would say, we have tried to avoid overthinking beyond this initial March sort of launch. So I'm hesitant to promise a full year ahead, but I'd say that all of these things you sort of alluded to are some of the first things we'll be exploring, and the survey that, thank everyone who took the time to fill it out, will help us in terms of prioritizing some of those things. I don't want to overpromise which ones may or may not be possible, or which ones may or may not make the most sense. But I think everything we've sort of talked about on the survey is still fair game of things that we've been considering. And it will just really become a matter of prioritization after launch. And as we start getting user feedback, I think that will also help indicate what our priorities should be. But, RCS, I think, is something we're constantly hearing about. So that seems really important. But there's a lot of other sort of little features that we plan to do as well.
Good. All right.
That wasn't too avoiding of the question, but
No,
I don't want to, at this point,
you don't have.
The good thing is that we have grown our developer team quite significantly since we've launched the Lightphone 3. So I do feel really confident that after launching the Lightphone 3, our momentum will be much stronger. We spent a good amount of resources and time sort of reworking some back-end stuff in the fall, which is a little bit more invisible to the users, but we've completely reworked how firmware and software updates happened, both for like quality assurance. Like, we've handled a lot more edge cases. There's going to be a lot more user experience indicators. So, exactly what the state of any given update is, percentage downloaded, percentage applied, and various outlier states, if there is perhaps a, corrupted download, and how that's handled. So, we really feel confident that that stuff is going to be working really rock solid. And there was actually a lot of security enhancements that we did on that front as well. So those just felt like a really important thing to step back and do. And one other thing I should mention for day one launch is we've been reworking the notifications as well. And I think that's going to be a really nice upgrade for everyone. I don't have it on this current beta to show off, but basically to try to alleviate some of these long-term ringer things we've seen, we've really kind of simplified, but we're adding more granular control where you'll see sliders in the notification settings for each thing. So like while you're listening to music, you can actually change your ringer volume still, where in the Lightphone 2, currently you're sort of limited to one tone at a time, whether that's alerts or things. So that will just be much more clearly shown to a user in one sort of screen. And I think that's going to be a huge upgrade that comes to both phones.
Good to know. And yeah, I appreciate, just kind of like the style always that you've had, which is under promising and delivering, like you don't want to promise something that is super, I don't know, like something that is maybe unattainable. I think that we have learned that as you guys develop more and more, you're listening to the feedback and making sure that things are better and better over time. But that kind of covers a lot of the, hey, is this coming? RCS, beeper, is the organization tool, you talked about it. So that kind of gives us a summary that, hey, these are the priorities. We're looking to optimize the phone, but don't expect, massive changes unless something crazy happens. You get a lot more developers, or there's an advancement in technology, and you're able to deliver some of these things. So I really appreciate that, and it kind of covers a wide range of things. It's a good answer, and I prefer for you to underpromise and then deliver surprises. I remember, for example, the directory tool. I don't think it was in anyone's radar, and then you guys came and said, hey, here it is. Like we've been listening to some of the things you wanted, and it's just something that can work. And this goes into NFC, and all of the other technologies. But I'm glad to hear that there's at least a short list of features that you're looking for.
And I would say, like, we are probably planning on having a good amount of our dev resources on hand and available for any sort of immediate bugs that might appear during that initial launch period. Obviously, we're trying our best to beat these things up as much as possible. One other thing we've kind of done in the background is when you go through the onboarding experience, we've added just a lot more clarity at each step of the way, but also the option to share logs with us. And so, this is obviously anonymous, but if a user decides to toggle this on, it will give us much more feedback for bugs that maybe have always been happening, but we haven't been able to 100% reproduce, or not, able to pinpoint, where these logs are going to be really useful for us gaining that. So we'll have, sort of what we call air traffic control, people that are just monitoring that and making sure that everything is smooth. I think that's really our priority, is make sure that the foundation is as rock solid as we can make it for this initial launch before we start moving full speed into more features. But it will be a split. We'll always have people working on new features and pushing things forward, but we definitely want to make sure we have, all hands on deck for making sure that if, God forbid, there are any bugs or oversights or things, that we're addressing them as quickly as possible in that first few weeks.
So the next set of questions is I'm going to grab three. I think one you're going to be able to say yes or no, and then the other one is more of like, what is this looking like for the pictures, and a few of these extra things. So the question is, does the Lightphone 3 have FM radio? So maybe hinting at a possible FM radio tool. And what is the status of the desktop integration? So instead of doing things through the dashboard, we will be able to kind of like back and forth share our files, music, pictures between my computer, desktop, and the phone.
For the radio, unfortunately, the Lightphone 3 does not have the hardware to support AM/FM radio. There is the possibility for a more digital radio tool that would pull from these different streams that many radio stations, both that exist on AM/FM or purely online. That's always been a tool we've sort of been interested in. On our surveys, we've asked about it as well. It's not been the most popular of the features, but one that I personally think is super cool, but unfortunately no AM/FM radio. And then the second question, sorry, what was that on about? Just
storage, transferring between files, music.
Oh, the desktop app, sorry. So I would say, like, we've been exploring it at a high level, trying to understand what may or may not make sense, and gauging, obviously, from our last survey that as it stands, we have not started building any sort of desktop app, but we've been trying our best to test whether or not the Lightphone 3 can connect with a variety of different computers, operating systems, etc., and what options users have with native tools on Macintosh or Windows or Linux for getting their photos on and off the device, or particularly off the device. We are interested still in a desktop app. I would just say our fear at this stage is adding something that might require ongoing maintenance to our stack if it doesn't have enough immediate value. Like maybe our resources might be better spent at working on other features, whereas if we build this desktop app, that's something that would require ongoing maintenance, where as a dashboard website, it's a little bit more straightforward in that regard. So we haven't tangibly started building it. It was interesting to see that the interest in a desktop app has jumped in this recent Lightphone 3 survey from previous Lightphone 2 surveys. So that's exciting. And I can imagine as we start talking about, giant music libraries and things like that, this would be really useful. But as it stands today, we haven't actually tangibly started building such a thing. I mean, I've mocked up some high level ideas of what that could look like and what features might be really nice, but on a technical level, no progress.
That's good. That's great. Good answers. I'm going to, again, grab two more from the Reddit, and then we're going to start grabbing the ones from here on YouTube. So if you have any questions about the phone, or we want to see some demos or whatever you want to see, make sure to put it in the comments right now, everybody. So the question right now is, so let's say I have a Lightphone 2. Sometime in the next month or so, I'm going to be transferring. Oh, there you go. And I'm going to be transferring to the Lightphone 3, essentially. So what do I need to do? Is everything going to be transferred automatically? Is it going to be through the account? And then the other question, and I can reiterate later, is how is the GPS functioning? And if we can see a demo, that's the question that they asked.
Yeah. Maybe we start with the first one. Sorry, I started reading the thing, so I got a little distracted myself. But the GPS is working pretty wonderfully. I've been super impressed, but we'll do a live sort of understanding. And yeah, I guess that was probably about 5 seconds or so that it took to get the GPS lock. And the GPS mode at the top, if you're a Lightphone 2 user, is the confirmation that it's a solid lock. So from the average speed of Lightphone 2, I'd say it's really a night and day difference. And then obviously I can't demo actually using the GPS moving around, but it's been super reliable. I can do a demo using a developer tool. Let me toggle that on, called Direction Simulation. And so this is something we've been using back when we started building the tool so that we could simulate a trip without actually leaving our computers. So I'm just going to queue up a random trip, MoMA. Maybe I'll do driving so the speed's a little bit better. So here we go. As you can see, oh God, so. And I should point out that this is in color, but will not be in color. In our latest beta, we've been able to actually set the grayscale. I just wanted to use what I knew would be a very reliable beta from last week to ensure, but this is that kind of zooming in and out experience that you might see, so that you really get an idea, like when you're in a car, that okay, it's about 10 blocks away before I have to take that next right. You know, as you can see here, this is something we have a ticket to fix where that shouldn't break onto 2 lines, the ETA. But this is the kind of like minor design tweaks that I've been working on. And, you know, as you'd expect, there's the list. Shoot, this is really hard. Of steps to take us to the MoMA. So, you know, that's pretty cool. I'll go back to the map view a little bit so you can see some more. Here, there's a turn. So yeah, I really wanted to not share this with this color, just to not set off any alarms like, what, it's in color. That is and will be in grayscale on the final phone. But I think that was really cool to see like how the directions moves like that. So we're really happy with that. Let me turn that off so it doesn't.
No, and that's okay, Joe. I think everybody understands that you guys are still developing a lot of things. And some people are saying, hey, maybe a toggle to keep it in color, like, you know, kind of like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely explore things like that in the future. Last week, we did all of our gray scale studies. Like currently in my beta, emojis come in color. So we've made our own custom grayscale emojis so that those will, you know, no longer be in color. Maybe there's a world where we might introduce the option for that, but I would say it's not really in our current plans to do that. We really do feel there's something special about the full grayscale. And even the maps that you saw, we're still tweaking with here, how that might look, you know, the contrast, the buildings, how much or little information is displayed as you navigate. You know, sometimes it's nice to see the stores as you go by, but sometimes it can be a little excessive. So we do have some control over that. And so our focus has been obviously building the tool and testing it and testing the GPS and making sure functionally it works. And now we're working in this month, especially in the last 2 weeks, to really just refine so that it feels as polished as, you know, it does in our Figma designs.
All right, good. Yeah, that's really great.
And
you know.
I forgot the first question now that I did all the
Yeah, no
directions.
worries. I'll reiterate. So the first question was about the sync. So if I'm switching from a light phone 2 to a light phone 3,
great
how is that
question.
going to work?
Currently, we do not have any special features for automatically transferring that over. It's kind of been in our nice to have bucket, but at this stage, I'm not sure for day one if there will be a way to just sort of automatically transfer. So we'd sort of recommend that you would download your contacts, which the dashboard can do as a VCF file, and then you just re-import them to the new device. You'd see both devices in your dashboard if you planned on keeping the Light Phone 2 for whatever reason, or you could, you know, disassociate that with your account if you prefer to just have the Light Phone 3, but you would have to manually re-add all of the tools and would essentially be as if you got a second Light Phone 2, a new device. There's definitely a lot of potential to automate some of that and transfer between the two, but realistically, it hasn't been something that we've been able to do just yet.
Yeah. Good.
But for whatever it's worth, I've been transferring between phones as this kind of alpha and beta tester, and it has been pretty straightforward. Within a few minutes, I'm usually up and running with my contacts and the tools that I'm testing.
Okay, good. Next question that we have, and again, guys, please put your questions in there. Somebody was asking, I don't see it here, but somebody was asking that they saw here it is, Nicole. So when it comes to the recording of the voice, we know that this happens on the Notes app, but they saw a little, you know, squiggly on the text messages. Are you guys planning to support voice messages like a recording voice message?
That's the goal. That will probably not be in there for day one, but I guess in working out the designs, we wanted to make sure that we future-proof the designs to support all the things that we plan to eventually introduce as features. So here, I'll pull back up that screen just so anyone else can see what we were referring to. Here, let me clear that random test I did before. But basically, sure, the plus sign and the, oh God, I'm so disoriented. Audio messages what we imagine the plus sign being is like, I've been calling it attachments, but it's really like if you wanted to send a contact, if you wanted to send a photo, and maybe in the future, if you can send your location or some other thing that you'd be able to send it from there. Maybe you can send a note from the note tool that way. So the plus sign we imagine would bring up sort of like how alternative characters exist, a sort of menu of other things that you can bring up. And then, yeah, the audio message, we love it to be just as quick as one click. But yeah, that's that page. There's a few tweaks. So in using it, I've kind of found that the send button can be accidentally hit if you had a long paragraph of copy that you were writing. So we're moving that up to the fully up to the top right, so that it's less, and that actually gives us even more room for the drafts. And you can get about 6 lines of text wide, tall and wide. So it's really just so much more usable for drafting than the Light Phone 2 was with the minimal screen. Not that we want to encourage such long text, but especially in viewing and participating in group threads, I found it so much easier to follow along some of those where I have friends that are just sending a quadrillion things.
All right. There was a question when it comes to the audio. Do you have anything that you can show us in regards to music, how it sounds, speakers that you have been testing, right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really listen to podcasts. I have my own sort of private jazz playlist, but as you can see, we've upgraded the podcast tool to have a few more icons on the homepage, particularly I think Bluetooth and settings are the new one there. And that will actually, I think, also translate to Light Phone 2 on day one. But I can definitely play some of this out loud. I have headphones on, so I can't really. It's a quiet jazz song. Maybe it finds a better moment. Sorry, I can't hear you.
No. I can hear you. I mean, I can hear it. I mean, it's good. It's.
I hope I didn't hold it too
Of
close
course.
to the mic or anything, but
Yeah.
I've been pretty
of course.
pleasantly impressed. And the podcast tool is almost done. There's a couple of things like tweaking the spacing between the podcast title and the episode name, just like tightening up some of those. But functionally wise, the podcast tool has been working really good.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for that. I mean, we, of course, listening through the mic, like putting the speaker on a microphone, you probably can't grasp how loud it is. But yeah, it's good to have a little bit of a sample. Would you say that I mean, sometimes the Light Phone 2, the speaker was quite tiny, sometimes it felt. How do you feel like it has improved over in the Light Phone 3?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because some people actually say the opposite about the Light Phone 2 speaker, that they feel it's louder than their previous smartphone. I would say the Light Phone 3 feels maybe a little louder than the Light Phone 2, but I would say the quality at the max volume feels a little bit more refined, where I think the problem with Light Phone 2 is at the max volume, you're really pushing the speaker to the limit and it can get a little tinny, clippy kind of vibes. And I think the Light Phone 3 just sounds a little bit more polished in that regard. So maybe not like so much louder, so to speak, but clearer, if that makes sense.
Evan just reminded me of a question that he asked, I think, at the beginning, but it's quite important as well. The question is essentially in regards to language support. So what is that looking like, and how is it going to be for different languages now that the keyboard is quite faster, right? It also, I think, helps with especially right to left, left to right languages, and all of that stuff. So let us know.
Yeah, I would say it's been on the back burner, but previous to kicking off the Light Phone 3, we had prototyped and built the infrastructure to support multiple languages, but we hadn't actually finished translating the entire OS into different languages. We just wanted to, sort of technically prove that we had a way to do so. I don't have an exact timeline. These are the sort of prioritization questions that will be really important after the sort of initial launch, but it is also on our short list. And, I think that survey that we shared, really helps us get a pulse of like which languages do we prioritize first. I think, it's probably safer to assume languages that still kind of maintain the Latin characters are going to be a little bit easier to support from the get-go. The custom keyboards is harder than actually translating the copy of the entire OS to another language. So that to set some sort of expectation, a language like Spanish would be much easier to support than, say, Japanese or Hebrew or something.
Yeah. And as of right now, I think you have QWERTY and AZERTY, right? Like, the other two styles in the keyboard are still present on the Light Phone 3.
So a lot of those features from Light Phone 2, you should expect to work, from voice to text to, things like the alternate characters, all the keyboard settings. We did remove the legacy keyboard setting from the Light Phone 3 because there is no legacy keyboard for the Light Phone 3 to support. So things like that don't exist. The sleep, the automatic backlight isn't relevant anymore. So that's not in the settings, but I think that's sort of an obvious one.
Awesome. That's good. Let me see if there are other questions that have been highly rated. I see a lot of people are kind of wanting to see a little bit more of the album and, the new tools, stuff like that. If you want to demo a little bit, there was one more. Here it is. Before we get to a little bit more demo, whatever you want to show.
Album tool, when you open an individual picture, like this is the one we just took at 12:05, you get the timestamp at the top. I really quite like how our delete UX works, which is you press the delete button and you get a confirmation screen. The X is the wrong size there, but those are the little sort of tweaks, and you can zoom in as well. On here, the send function doesn't work, but that will basically give you the option to forward to email or to send as a text, sort of like how you might send a contact now. If you were to share a contact, it would look like that experience. But, the album tool, you can swipe through photos. Sorry, that's my friend Amanda.
All right. Well, thanks for that. I mean, that kind of.
And sorry, I should show one more thing for the album. In its very earliest stage, there's this ellipsis down here, which is for sorting options. So, and this isn't the final design, but you can sort videos or photos. And I imagine that in the long term, we may have things like favorites. So you could favorite some of your favorite photos and have this kind of like photo wallet to, just show someone something you were saving. And there may be other options like a settings in there for syncing, as well as the option to select multiple images to either delete or share, where right now it's individual images. So those are the little refinements that we keep adding, but like at its core, the album tool has been working and it's great. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. One thing that a lot of people are asking for as they're getting more confirmation of their orders is, what are the cases going to look like, accessories that you're going to be asking and including as available in the next few weeks. And if you have any samples, we'd love to see them.
I regretfully did not bring any samples home from our office, so I don't have them on hand. We did do a whole other iteration of the silicone case that we had shown in our previous update. We're quite happy with where it's landed. We're doing a little tweak to try to make the buttons just a little bit easier to press through the case. And then we're sort of deciding on the final colors now. I'm not sure we'll be able to do every single color that we sort of teased, but it looks like we should hopefully have up to 5 color options. For the case, there will definitely be a black one as well as a few other colors. And cool thing is that we can probably continue to add colors ongoing, but just with minimum order quantities and stuff, we want to be sort of conservative with what we are doing. So we'll definitely have our light case, our light screen protector. There's a USB-C to aux dongle, as well as this USB-C cable that I'm currently using on my microphone, which is really quite nice. I've been enjoying the cable itself, and then been chatting with the Lemur team, and we will hopefully also offer some of their cases for pre-order, but they'll definitely be also offering them on their own site, as well as maybe some other third parties. But for the initial sort of pre-order email confirmation, I think you can definitely expect at least our one case, maybe the Lemur case, screen protectors, and those cable options, as well as, haven't really talked about this much, an insurance option is also the goal. So we have a partner that we've been working with, and so if you wanted to optionally insure the phone, I think it's around $9 to $10 a month. And there's a little bit of deductibles if you needed to get a new screen or complete replacement, but those exact details are being kind of ironed out now as we calculate our repair cost and whatnot. But looks like we should be able to do a decent amount of repairs on the Lightphone 3 relative to Lightphone 2, but exact offering, we're still kind of fine tuning, like what is possible reliably to repair, how much does that cost, how much time does it take, and creating those procedures internally, we're working through right now.
One more area, since you touched on repairability, can you tell us a little bit more about the replaceable battery? Is it going to be available through you guys only? iFixit, there's a lot of like little things like that.
Yeah, I would say that we probably won't offer batteries from day one because we really would discourage someone from changing the battery immediately. We'll definitely have them sooner than later, but buying an extra battery, it will degrade if you just leave it in a box for 3 years. So we'd recommend waiting a few years until the battery requires it. From a software side, we've done some explorations, and we hope to also add some battery health stats to the kind of device info screens on the phone, because underlying Android does support some of that, and we do have internal tests that we use on the production line, even for the Lightphone 2, to test the health of each battery. So making some of those more visible to the end user, I think would be an awesome option, but that hasn't been a huge priority because we don't imagine anyone would, ruin their battery within the first month. So exact cost of the battery and timing, I do not know, but we've been testing the replaceable batteries. We've made a couple of improvements to how, snapping the ribbon sort of works, and just to try to ensure that it's even less prone to accidental user error. We will strongly advise people being careful, and we plan to make a bunch of videos to walk through that process, and we'll of course always offer our own servicing of it if you didn't feel comfortable opening up the phone. Generally speaking, we're not shipping the phone with the screwdriver required to open the battery door, but any accessory that requires that will include that. And that's sort of also to discourage people just curiously opening the battery door. I'm sure some people will want to, but it just, the more you open and close that, it just allows risk for dust and water and other things to get into the phone. So, as fun as it is, we are sort of discouraging that as much as possible.
Well, one area that I've seen in the chat a little bit is when it comes to photos, they're wondering like, okay, how do I get the photos out? Can I sync them to Google? You guys have Calendar right now. Calendar can sync to Google and Apple, but photos, no syncing right now. Or how do I get them out of the phone?
Yeah, I'd say we've been exploring a variety of different options, and there seems to be, fortunately, a bunch of ways to do it. We're kind of balancing the trade-offs with any way. If we wanted to have a button on the dashboard that just said like download all my photos as a zip, and then it allowed you to download on your computer, that would be awesome, but that would also require a ton of bandwidth and maybe a cost that might not be sustainable for us. Syncing with other platforms would be awesome, but that is, does require some work to make that possible. So I think, in our survey, we hinted at and asked about some of these things, like what would be most important, but we want to have a variety of options, from hard plugging in the device and being able to, you'd have to give it the permissions on the phone so your computer could access it, and, support with a variety of native or third-party tools that would allow you to really easily get those off. You'll be able to forward any individual image to your email, as a full resolution image. So like that might be a really nice way if you just wanted to get 1 or 2 off really quickly. But in the long term, we're open to sorry, my cat's making an appearance. We're open to a variety of ways to do it. So, please keep that feedback coming. I think, having a third party option, whether it's Google or some other platform, makes sense, because then we don't have to deal with the economics of it. And, whether you have a paid or not platform with them, we want more options than less, like all things. I just can't 100% say what we'll have for day one, but I know forward to email will definitely be one. And we've already been using the USB-C offloading a lot. The tricky thing is sometimes, we tested with a 2011 MacBook and it wasn't immediately recognizing the device without a third party open source kind of MTP platform. So we're just trying to make all the support pages so that we have all the options as we go through this process available to users.
Okay, good. Since we're on the topic of pictures and photos, people want to know, as always, right? All tools are optional. So if I want to put the camera tool, but I don't want to put the album tool, that's possible, or would that be a little different?
So I'd say this is something I'm still sort of thinking through, and it might be great to get some feedback. But right now, camera and album exist in the toolbox. And I imagine that we'd allow a user to remove the camera and album from the toolbox, because the hotspot, it's still accessible from the shutter button. If I have the phone open and I press the shutter, upside down because I'm confused here, it opens the camera. So for me, I never actually press camera in the toolbox, but some people might prefer that. So I think right now we're thinking of it as if you remove the album tool from the phone, you'd still see the album shortcut. As you can see here, that album, album button shortcuts straight to the album tool. I click it and then it goes right to the album tool. That's still available. I haven't heard a lot of feedback of people that don't want an album at all on it, to actually completely remove that. And that may be something that makes more sense in the camera settings rather than as removing or not the tool. But we can, in theory, handle that a variety of ways. But by default, the phone will have camera and album tool installed. And right now I can go on my dashboard and remove the album if I want. But it's still accessible, if that makes sense, currently.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Guys, please put your questions. I see one more. This one deals more with privacy. So if you could talk a little bit more, maybe somebody who hasn't been here before and wants to know a little bit more about your privacy, but they want to know about, since this is built on Android, is there tracking on the phone? How is it built, and all that stuff. So talk to us a little bit more about the privacy of the device.
No, I mean, we do leverage Android, but I don't really know what they mean by this generic tracking, but I think it's probably some fear that there's a Google suite of things taking it. But the Android is really for the core telemetry of the phone. Things like when you don't have a SIM card and need to call 911 and it sends this emergency data off. That's what we're really leveraging Android for, a lot of that stuff. But there's absolutely no tracking of the phone from that regard. But if you want to talk about the NSA here in the US, we are sending SMS text messages, and those are unfortunately subject to all of that sort of sniffing along the way. But that has nothing to do with a light phone device, and that's something you'd find on any cell phone. Light OS, we're quite proud of our user privacy, and that none of our business models are at all tied to user data. We tend to think the less data we have, the better, because having user data is actually a responsibility. And as I sort of alluded to, we have beefed up some of our encryption and security across the entire pipeline. We did a nice security audit in, was it late July or August? And so that's why we sort of spent more time than we initially anticipated on some of this firmware and core Android stuff, to really just make sure we don't have any vulnerabilities in that regard. And then obviously, as we've sort of mentioned before, all of the tools that do leverage third parties, whether that's directory, directions, or voice to text currently, we as Light pay those platforms to use their, technology without sharing any user identifiable data. And that's, something that's built into the Light OS, that when you buy the phone, that's sort of included in the cost of the device. And it's something we're really proud of. So, while we don't have encrypted text messaging and some of these other privacy features yet, at its core, it's a phone that is not interested in tracking you at all.
Thank you for that. There is another hot topic, of course, during our exploration of technology in today's world. So Brody asked, what about AI? So is there any integration that you guys are planning, or, something like that? What are your thoughts on that for the Light Phone 3?
No, we don't have any AI intentions. I'd say, we try to remain aware of what might be happening in that space, and I can't really see much value that would remain in the Light ethos with AI. We intentionally don't have an internet browser. Yes, you could find out when, I don't know, Taylor Swift's birthday or who was in what film, but that's not really the point of the Light phone. And then for things like when a restaurant's open, or what the phone number is, that's sort of why we built a directory tool. I've dabbled with AI to see if it was any good for weather, and I found that it was less than reliable for things like that. So I think we'd take a different approach to weather. So, we try not to be ignorantly just saying no, but at this stage, I can't imagine why we would integrate AI. And I think there's a lot of larger scale sustainability and otherwise issues with AI that, don't really feel aligned with Light either.
Yeah. I'm going to do one more question, and then I would like for you to kind of give us a final demo of whatever you want to.
I mean,
okay.
If there's specific things, that's definitely great too.
Right. Yeah. But somebody asked, this can be a specific thing, is in regards to the wheel. So right now it can adjust the brightness, right, of the device, but can it do anything else?
For day one so far, we have not explored doing anything else with the wheel, but there's been some really great ideas that we've had internally, as well as people sharing with us. I think two of them that I sort of mentioned on the Discord the other day, where that someone said maybe the wheel could be using the movable cursor in text messages on a character by character level. Because as anyone who's ever used a touchscreen before, sometimes it's finicky on all touchscreens to get in between that exact letter on the Compose keyboard. I think potentially zooming in or out of the map, especially if you're in a more public transit overview of the whole map and you want to zoom in to see that one particular step, that seems like it might be a really nice use of it. The wheel does also click. So, right now, that was a little bright. It turns on the flashlight if the phone's awake. So there's that. We have ideas that maybe a long press might take you straight to the settings, or some other configurable thing. But by default, and for now, the wheel has just been controlling brightness through the entire OS. And I personally found that to be quite nice, because, you open up your camera and maybe, you want it to be a little bit brighter just so you make sure you know what you're shooting, or then you're writing a text and you want to just turn it down because it's a little bit bright. So I found that very useful, and it makes me very conscious of keeping my brightness down as much as possible. But I can imagine so many cool uses for the wheel beyond just that.
Okay, we have more very specific. For the camera, they want to see if it can focus. So tap to focus, or is it just a single focus area?
So I guess, this would be a good thing to show. Right now, we've sort of always imagined that it would be locked with just this sort of center focus. We'll see if this works on me. So I'm half pressing and it's attempting to focus. Oh, I shot the photo. It's really hard to do this upside down. I apologize. So half press, it's attempting to focus. It's having trouble getting me for some reason. Oh, there it goes. And then, it can lock. Right now, you can actually click to try to focus elsewhere, but we aren't sure if we were going to actually release that function or not. It's kind of been an unknown, but we wanted to make sure it worked. So it does work in case we wanted to support that. So if you wanted to press on the side, but the way the focus lock should work is like I locked right there and I can move and it's holding the focus of right there. So like behind my computer's out of focus and I let go and then it does its auto readjustment and focuses on the background. So if you've ever used like a point and shoot film camera, that's sort of how the shutter button functions, with a kind of autofocus, auto exposure lock in the center. And then as you move, once it's locked, it will retain that focus distance and exposure. But right now you can't actually click around to manually do that. But I found it really nice to have physical buttons where you don't actually have to touch the camera screen at all. You can kind of just, if you have gloves on, even where like, you know, opening touch screen gets difficult, you can just wake the phone and press camera button and take a photo with gloves on without having to take them off. And I think that's been awesome for me testing the camera in this New York winter.
Some people are asking because we all have seen the dark theme on the iPhone 3, but will there be a light theme as well?
Like inverting the display? Yeah, definitely. So all of those kinds of basic features, for lack of a better term, that the iPhone 2 supports, the iPhone 3 also supports.
Okay, good to see. All right, let's see. What else do people want to see? In the music tool, a lot of people are asking, since the phone now has 128 gigs, they'll be able to access a larger amount of that size for music. But do you have the new tool for music in your phone? Or
I mean, I do. The design is not flushed out in its entirety. So like the spacing and exact font, but as you can see, this almost 100% mirrors the iPhone 2 currently. We do have designs for, like I kind of mentioned earlier, more sorting options where you'd open the tool and it'd be like all songs, playlist, artist, albums. You know, playlist is probably a little bit more future than the albums and artist sorting. So, you know, those are things that we think will make a lot of sense if you're thinking about, you know, much larger music libraries, which I also selfishly am thinking and excited for. So the music tool right now functions exactly as the iPhone 2. And either before March or shortly thereafter, we'll have this kind of expanded music tool for the iPhone 3. I think that answered the question. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think it did. I think it shows you're going to expand a little bit more because you have way more storage. And that's actually a good thing. I think this one is a very important one that we kind of forgot on this full Q&A, but what is the Bluetooth performance looking like for the iPhone 3? I recall, you know, early on, it was always difficult to get the iPhone 2 connected to cars or, you know, to other things. So what is it looking like for the iPhone 3?
I would say it's more or less the same experience. I have had much better luck connecting it to cars. So it's, you know, it's using a more up-to-date Bluetooth. And so in my personal car, which is a pretty old Toyota, like very rudimentary Bluetooth, when I connect to something like a car, there's permission states. So we'll ask you if you want to connect it as a phone and have access to your phone book, and if you want text or just calls. I'm sort of butchering the exact copy, but there's two sort of permission states when you're connecting it that are new for the iPhone 3. And that's been great because I couldn't get the iPhone 2 to do the kind of in-car where like I can hang up and answer the call and see it on my car's screen with phone calls. And I haven't tested that across nearly enough cars at all, but it does seem to be a huge improvement so far. I think there's still going to be outlier cases with pins that we need to resolve, and we have not yet done that. But those are things that we want to get in this kind of refinement stage for both phones. You know, it's been something we've wanted to expand for the iPhone 2 as well. But in terms of like Bluetooth reliability, it's been pretty good. I mean, I listen to AirPods or my over-the-ear headphones all the time. My home audio speakers, it connects with no problem. And then, yeah, the car experience. So I don't know how to quantitatively describe it, but I would say, you know, it's been working good for me in my personal testing across a bunch of different devices.
Yeah, and whenever, for example, I get my device, I'll get to do a little bit more like specific videos of like, okay, do the play buttons work with which headphones? I mean, I know different capability, and that kind of stuff throughout. But it's just something that it takes time. It's just something that more use cases, more questions come, and that's when a lot of us who are waiting for our phones. Whenever I get mine, I'll be testing more of these use cases, answering very specific questions so that we can have a better repository of information, both on the Discord and the Reddit, through our users, just people can
And
use
we
it that way.
appreciate you for that very much. And I will just point out again, I sort of sound like a broken record, but I do think our development pace will see a much different momentum already just in working with this non-e-ink screen. It's sped up so many things. We had this opportunity since launching the pre-order in June to kind of step back and say, like, if we were to redo what we did for the Light Phone 2 back in 2018 as we started development, what might we do different in terms of the kind of Android Light OS connection? And so we did make some improvements there, and I feel confident that these kinds of features may be able to improve and roll out at a much quicker pace. We did invest in some internal development tools that are making our team more efficient. Even though it maybe took one developer a week to build this thing, it saves each developer 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. That adds up to, much faster pace. Things like having logs, we'll be able to find bugs that maybe users are experiencing but unable to report in any way that's immediately obvious what's happening. So, if you're willing, I would encourage you to check yes for those logs when you first get your phone. That would be super helpful. Obviously, no obligation.
Yeah. People are asking a little bit more about showcasing the GPS tool. I know you cannot show, you already did a little bit of the demo, how it's going to look like, but maybe some people in New York City with the new toll system, that kind of stuff. What are some of the features that you guys are planning? How's it going to look in that regard?
I'm not sure I fully follow the question, but the directions tool, like, more or less has all of the same function. I mean, we've redesigned it a little. The settings icon is now at the bottom for consistency. It's going to be there in a lot of the tools across the phone, so trying that. But the settings themselves are basically the same from the Light Phone 2.
What they were asking is like, will there be an option to, since now it's, can I avoid a toll, right? So from
Yeah, I mean, the tool has not supported that historically, and I've actually not jotted that feedback down, but that's an interesting thing. We could definitely consider. Those things will be relatively limited to what is and isn't possible with here, but here is quite advanced, and I'm sure there's options for us to expand the tool with different settings like that. But just to set expectations, I'd assume exactly what the current directions tool looks like. And we have a blog post. Obviously, it's about the e-ink version, but that might be worth checking out to get a better idea of what it currently supports. And then, yeah, please keep sharing feedback for other features because that may be something that's easy to accommodate in the future.
Another one that is kind of like reliability. Some users over time have reported that their Wi-Fi connection doesn't stick, with the Light Phone 2. Is that better with the Light Phone 3 per your testing?
It is better so far. I wouldn't say I've been, that's not a huge scale to very confidently say too much, but between my personal Wi-Fi and this Wi-Fi at my office, which is shared by, hundreds of people with all the other companies, it's been reliably reconnecting when I go between the two. And Wi-Fi assisted calling has been also performing pretty well. Especially our office is kind of cavernous.
Can you show us a little bit of like the general smoothness of the UI? I mean, with the Light Phone 2, of course, the e-ink screen is a little bit more like, getting into something.
Yeah, I might have to like straddle my computer a little bit better so I can look at what I'm actually doing. But
Oh my God.
history.
I look at it right now and
We're
I'm
gonna
like,
have things
I'm
like
here
where
with like
it
one
snaps to scroll. So like when you land somewhere, the name will fit at the exact spot on things like this. Just to look at like a sort of huge group thread, like texts are so much more legible. There's a lot of good copy, a lot of good real estate for the copy to exist. The toolbox is obviously, much quicker than it was on other tools. Maybe setting the timer, it's very quick, as one might expect. I don't know what else to really show off in terms of that. As I mentioned, a lot of tools are functioning, like the notes tool works, but the design hasn't been refreshed to maximize and look as good as possible. But you can still record audio as you'd expect, text notes. This interface isn't correct because it's supposed to be save and not send and whatnot. So those are the little things that we're working on right now. This is actually like about a week and a half old beta. I just wanted to have something more stable to show off. I'm doing daily betas where, things are kind of breaking and crumbling each day as we fix different things, but it is the process.
So somebody brought something when you were showing, and number one, I am like mind blown because for the past 5 years I've used the light phone 2 as my phone, and I've gotten used to like the animations. Everything is slow. Everything is like it's measured,
So
right?
even like seeing them wake and sleep, like all that's much quicker. Rebooting Light OS is like a few seconds, whereas maybe more like 20 seconds. So some of that stuff will be faster for sure.
Yeah. Somebody asked, when I am trying to send a text message, for example, I cannot see the conversation on my light phone 2 because it takes the whole screen real estate. That's different on the light phone 3.
No, it's a similar experience. I would say what's maybe different about it. So that's us, is that it's very in the same exact place you can kind of close. So like I start a draft, I'm like, wait, what did he say? Oh, okay. He said, so a little bit easier to go back and forth between the two, but we stuck with this pretty similar, like what I call like focused composed screen where you're not sort of as distracted. And, we did experiment with what it would look like to have it all there, but, it just gets tricky as your compose grows, then what you can actually see from the previous conversation is smaller, and this phone is a lot shorter than a smartphone. So that's where the vertical real estate, to keep the keyboard nice and big and have your composed draft really big, I felt like you just wouldn't see enough information. One thing I'd like to experiment with is like maybe there's some swipe gestures to make that even quicker. So like if you were texting, like maybe I could just swipe down instead of having to press the X as an alternative, or like if I swipe back.
Yeah, I mean, again, as somebody who's used to the kind of slow, methodical light phone 2, this just looks, way faster and it's way smoother. One more thing is text size. Can it be adjusted on the light phone 3? Are there any plans for that?
Plans, yes. As of today, no, that isn't a feature. But in stepping back, again, like sort of like alternative languages, we did start to really think about how we could support that. And I think would probably imagine something where there's a variety of preset sizes. So there's kind of like default size, and then maybe there's a larger size, I think would be the biggest request for people that want things bigger, and then maybe even eventually a smaller size. And I think that would affect certain text styles across things like the conversation thread or maybe the directions, but the toolbox would probably remain the same size. So that's sort of how I imagine it. But right now, there is only going to be this sort of one default size out the gate. But I think something we were thinking about from day one with building the Light Phone 3 was wanting a bigger screen to support larger size fonts, because Light Phone 2 was just so limited in that regard. Unfortunately, there's a lot more real estate to explore things like that.
More people are asking by popular request, can they listen to a few ringtones, on the Light Phone 3?
Yeah, we don't have any new ones yet, but I don't know. Do you want to give me a call? So, people probably recognize that one, but And, oh, he hung up. I was going to just show the call connected screen, but it's exactly what you'd sort of expect.
Let me do it again.
So, answer the call, and you'd have the option to mute, speaker, Bluetooth, or dial pad. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and everything just seems so much bigger, right? Like, I mean, with the screen resolution being bigger and having a lot of these extra things available just because of the technology, I think you are able to do a few extra things here and there. I think there is a lot more that you probably will say over time, but can you give us a little bit of a timeline, final kind of wrapping up questions here of when can we expect this? There has been certification things with the FCC. What are you guys looking like for
the actual hardware rollout?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as of today, we're still basically on track with the production plan that we shared in early January, which, if anyone wants to see on the blog, was the PVT production verification test, validation test. Sorry, I always get the acronyms wrong. Basically, the final 2 tests that we did that are essentially, this is a phone from that build, exactly 100% what to expect in mass production. So it really was using the exact same tools, components, testing, everything that we'll be doing for mass production. Right now, today's the 3rd. We're probably about 11 days away from getting most of the regulatory certifications finalized, and then there's about up to 10, potentially not, day window before we actually get the FCC badge specific to the light phone that we'll need for packaging and whatnot. So we'll be kicking off mass production in the end of February and hoping to begin shipping in the very early side of March. By the time, it goes through customs, gets our fulfillment center, and is sent out, realistically, maybe like March 7th to 10th to be safe, but maybe even a little bit earlier, perhaps. And that's for the very earliest pre-orders. We are still negotiating what speed will ramp up production. There's, some trade-offs. Obviously, we want to make as many as possible, as quickly as possible. But if we produce all of the phones too quickly and then have to stop the line, it gets harder to restart. So we're, trying to really balance that on the forecasting and make sure, we're being as smart as possible for long-term in terms of that rollout. But I know Kaiwei and Eileen, who on our team work really hard with that stuff, are eager to get as many phones as quickly as possible to everyone that's pre-ordered. We're like so incredibly beyond excited to ship this. Obviously, if by the end of February something has changed in that, you'll hear from us as soon as possible. I do want to share a more formal update with some of these things I tried to show in this really not so great mirrored experience I need to work on. But yeah, I'd love to show a more, intentional tool by tool, especially as things have sort of gotten tightened up and continue to get tightened up. And I'd like to better articulate some of those kind of security and firmware and behind the scenes improvements that we've done, work with the software team to really make sure I'm properly doing that justice. Because I think that stuff is really important, going to make a difference. Like reworking the notifications, I really hope is going to make things just super reliable, as well as just kind of more clear interface. So that's tentatively the timeline now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. That's great. I think that gives us a little bit of an understanding of what's to come and that you will be sharing updates very soon. I think the thing that I'm excited about is getting the phone and being able to test it. But not only that, is that now you only have one version, so I can take it with me when I travel, if I go overseas, and I can do more testing in that way. So it's really, it's really good like that you get to kind of like test some of these things out, but also having just one phone for the whole market, I think it makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of bands, there's a lot of different things that are going to make life easier for a lot of people. I mean, just looking at the GPS tool, looking at some of the transitions and the scrolling, I was just like, yeah, I mean, this is great. So I'm really excited.
The great thing I've also found is that despite, all of these performance improvements, it is ultimately still a light phone. You know, when I'm out and about, I'm not checking my phone more because it's quicker. I'm not more inclined to show it off. It's still very much in my pocket. But it's nice that like when I do pull it out and want to get something done, it is a little faster. Obviously, anyone who's tried the Light Phone 2 and adjusted to it knows there's so many benefits to like rewiring and slowing down the pace. And I was maybe a little afraid that if we had this full speed, some of that would be lost. But I think it still really maintains the ethos. You know, I'm still like bringing my film camera around for my own personal art. But it's nice to have the option to be like, oh, skate spotter, flyer, or I want to remember the date of this show or something like that. You know, so I found the camera very useful as a tool for memories and whatnot. But you know, it's not like now I don't shoot film anymore. You know, we're still going to have a very film centric product photos and you know, presence on the internet.
That's awesome. Well, Joe, I think maybe one last thing that people maybe kind of like is the pre-order period, the window, the price, is it going to stay the same until you guys launch, or can we expect an update from you guys if that price changes?
We don't have a firm date for changing the pre-order price. We will definitely give weeks notice before any such price change would be considered. In my mind, I think it'd be really nice to keep the price at $599 until it's buy it now, as a, you know, sort of you for pre-ordering and being patient with that process. It's really helpful for us to get pre-orders so that we can, you know, secure the materials ahead of time, you know, in our sort of cash fluid nature. It's really helpful for any small hardware startup, especially with all of these like R&D hard costs that aren't related to, you know, making the actual phone. So we really appreciate that. I'd love to keep it that price, and what the final price is and when it would change, we don't have an exact timeline. Right now, pre-orders are still estimated for the month of May for a new pre-order. So it's pretty safe to assume that we won't be buy it now until at least May. And like I mentioned, if we keep, you know, getting tons of pre-orders, that date might push to June before we have it available for buy it now. So now is definitely a good time to lock in the best timeline, but also price for sure.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, Joe. We really appreciate you coming in, giving us a little bit of an update, giving us a little bit of a demo. I mean, it looks like it's getting there, being definitely more, you know, kind of like usable. And I mean, pretty much some of the final renderings of what you're going to do. And of course, you will change a few things here and there. And yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see how that works, how, you know, that gets kind of like worked on. And yeah. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. I guess somebody asked conference call feature, but that one is already supported. I don't know why.
Well,
maybe
call waiting is currently supported, and you
Okay.
can obviously join someone else's, but you can't yet actually initiate a conference call on either Light Phone 2 or 3. But that is also sort of in our kind of smaller features we'd love to introduce, because it's very phone centric and has a clear utility. But conference calls, you can't initiate one currently in the Light OS.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I was just saying, like, participating in one is possible,
Oh yeah,
right? So
totally,
if
definitely.
somebody lets you join. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks a lot,
Yeah, my
everyone, for
pleasure.
attending, and
We're
we'll see
so
you guys.
excited to start shipping soon. Like
Oh,
seriously, the whole team.
One final thing.
No rush, whatever.
Light Phone 3 party. What's the status on that?
I mean, as exciting as it is, I realistically, it's, you know, hasn't been top of mind. My focus has just been getting the phone to be the absolute best we can for day one. And that's sort of like a fun afterthought. So nothing tangible to share on that front. But like, I think it'd be great to have something in real life, probably in New York City. Don't have an exact venue yet, but like it'd be so cool to have the phone so people can come check it out. That maybe been on the fence or whatnot. It sucks that, you know, geographically we won't be able to be everywhere at that time, but I would love to party. And I
All
think
right,
everyone on the
sounds
team deserves it at this point. You know, we really have been hustling hard. So the
Sounds
morale
good.
is high, and everyone on the team is just like so eager to share this thing and feeling really good. So, you know, thank you everyone who's supported this, pre-ordered, and like allowed us to really, you know, take this thing full speed from June. It's been amazing, and we're like so ready to ship this thing.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you in the next video. And whenever I get my unit, I'll be sharing more details and testings. Have a great day, and hope you get to share it. And you can watch it again. There are timestamps. So if you want to watch a specific area, specific tool that has been developed or improved, it will be there. See ya.